Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, and that is Connor, and we are going to talk about the OA Season 1, Episode 8. It's called Invisible Self. It's the season finale, full spoilers for the episode, as always. That was not what I was expecting from the finale.
No, that was something else entirely.
That was... God damn it. It's funny, because obviously early on in the season we spoke about, well, her story might not actually be true. That this could be her, everything's from her perspective. She's not necessarily a reliable narrator,
Hmm.
And well, that was always there. Like, it's almost surprising they really put it in the last episode. Like, oh no, by the way, this could all be complete
Yeah, it's
bollocks.
weird how, other than just, oh, it's her narration and it might not be true, there's not been much hinting towards it before this, I don't think.
Not overtly, no.
I mean, other than the fact that, okay, it's insane, this story, and you're just going to have to listen to it.
And this silly dance can open portals to other
Yeah,
people.
sure, but that, there's nothing been other than the actual ideas
The
that have
skepticism,
suggested.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Nah, that said though, there's evidence for and against, of course, as you'd expect with any kind of story like this. There's ambiguity and there's reasons why the evidence might not be what it seems. There's other things that suggest one way or the other. First things first, we do start in the flashback. We start right after the sheriff has his gun to the back of Hap's head, and Hap tries to bargain with him and says that his wife can be cured. And this leads to the sheriff bringing his wife there, and the idea being that if his wife gets cured, he'll turn a blind eye. Which actually, the first when he goes downstairs into the cells and they all wake up, I just felt so like, oh, guys, because they're all
It's
going
like,
to think they're being saved and this
and
is
they do,
over.
they're all,
Yeah,
excited.
yeah, they're all excited, and we know he's not there for that. We know he's there to make a deal with the devil, and it's just,
Mm.
god damn you, and that hurts. And
Yeah.
yeah, so they take Homer and they take OA and they go into the room with his wife and they do the same movements that they did to resurrect Scott, and she does seemingly get cured. Lights flicker, things happen, and she wakes up, and she had an NDE when she was a kid, apparently, and she starts saying, "My whole life I've been waiting to give two people held captive the fifth movement."
Yeah. Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny. Obviously, that's a big theme of everything that's playing in with all this kind of stuff and fate and always meant to be there. And obviously, we get back to OA's premonition from the last episode that comes into play later as well. So clearly, it's a running thing. I will say it did feel a little bit.
Hokey.
Yeah, hokey's a word for it. I was just going to say kind of out of nowhere kind of thing.
Yeah, there's
Like
no. It kind of just happened. They had no control over it. They had no events that caused it. It was just, oh yeah, sure, let's do this because we have to. But it felt like they should have had some impact into getting the fifth movement.
oh, I don't necessarily agree with that. Because even like Renata coming wasn't. I mean, sure, he used Homer to do it, but it wasn't his choice to go there and look. I don't think they actually
No,
have
but
to.
all the other movements they got on their trips, right? They went through and they found the movements. Whereas this one, it was just like, yeah, well, you're never gonna get it, so I'll just that's there for you to get eventually.
Yeah, but
Whereas it felt like they,
it was always planted though. It wasn't like this was a new development. She had this in her since she was a kid. In
yeah, I
fact, she
know,
had this fifth movement before even OA had her first thing. Because she's
yeah,
old.
I know.
That's not
Which
my
then,
problem though. I don't have a problem with any of what you're saying here though. My problem is just because we've only had her mentioned once in one scene, like
yeah,
before this episode, and then we have this with her, and she just goes into it like immediately. There's no like build up to it. There's no. It just feels really sudden to me.
yeah, yeah,
It almost like, oh, let's just quickly write it in. Like it almost felt like there was meant to be another episode building this up, but it got cut, so it just went straight into it.
yeah. I get that.
But other than that, though, I don't have a problem with this being how her because this is actually the end of her flashback essentially because Hap takes her out. Like he gets first visibly upset that Homer and Owe are touching. He's like
Yeah.
jealous and angry about it. And this is right after he shot the sheriff and the wife, which you see coming, of course, because
Of course.
he sees
Can't
the
have
gun.
witnesses.
Of course not. Which again puts him back in the ruthless side of things, where he's not that humane. This is
But again, it was not something that he did like that. Killing them wasn't something that made him feel particularly like, okay, it's evil, but it's not like evil for just for the sake of it. It was he can't have witnesses. It was just, again, it was something to further his plan. That's all.
sure you
Still felt very clinical.
You sound a bit of a sociopath.
But I just
Sympathizing
mean
with that.
every time he's been evil has been just in
No,
advancing his plan.
I get what you're saying, but you sound like a bit like a sociopath justifying this.
Look, I'm just saying, there's a whole bit of the style where it talks about shades of grey. It's not black and white, and that's like I get that he genuinely believes that it's not. He knows what he's doing is wrong, but he still believes it's for the betterment of humanity, maybe.
But he gets angry and he takes prey away. And obviously, the woman gives him the fifth movement, and he sees it as well. He's been, watching very eagle-eyed, and he takes prey out. He drives her out, and she's wearing the same sort of gown that she had on in the first episode when you see her on the bridge. So this is kind of linking up timeline-wise. He takes her out, and he cuts her and says, "Look, you're not indispensable. I have the fifth movement. I don't need you. I just need Homer. I'm leaving you where I found you." Like he's almost leaving her in a jealous rage. This, I guess it is almost suggesting that because he was more connected to her, maybe he did have feelings for her, and maybe there was just a genuine jealousy between, him and her relationship with Homer. And he even says the line, but even if you somehow find your way back, we may already be gone into another dimension. Yeah.
My question is, why does he need Homer and not her?
Because Homer's the leader. We've kind of established this.
Yeah,
He's
I guess so.
that was a big plot point when he took him to Cuba. The reason why he took him is because he's a leader and he inspires people.
Yeah, okay, I buy that.
And he's the driving force of it. But again, you could just sum it up to the jealousy, rage that he's in the middle of, and he wants. It's almost he wants to be extra cruel to her. It's more of a punishment to her, more of a act of vengeance to leave her away from him without the knowledge of where he is, or if she can ever get back to him.
See, I get that, but at the same time, I'd feel like, would he not find it crueler to get rid of Homer, leaving her still trapped, still his thing, where he still has any attachment to her there, and she knows she can't get him?
It depends what way around it is, but if she wants her to feel the punishment, I'd say leaving her out and not being able to get back to save him is the worst one. Because if you're a good person, it eats you up more that the other person's suffering.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me. I get that.
Oh, okay.
But so we come back to present day. Fantastically awkward moment because she's getting really into the story at this point. She's screaming and whatnot, and this is when we cut to all of the parents of all of the teenagers standing in the room, plus OA's parents, watching this and being horrified at what's going on, like they're a bunch of crazy people, like this crazy woman is trying to make a cult out of their children, essentially.
Yeah.
And it forces them to go to a hotel, like the parents don't want them around, and it leads to splitting paths here. So OA goes to a hotel with the parents, and we get confirmation that there was a letter and that her mother did hide it, and her reasons were twofold. One was the one that she said was that she said she's looking for her father, but you're her father, and that would upset you. And he, quite rightly says, "What? Our daughter's missing. You think I'm going to be concerned of the wording?"
Yeah, it's like, come on, woman.
Yeah. But the real reason being was that if there was a note saying, "I'm going away, I'll be back at some point," the police wouldn't treat it as a disappearance. They wouldn't treat it in the same way. And I get that, but she should have told him, as he quite rightly says.
Yeah.
We should have made that choice together.
I was laughing quite a bit, when this comes up and he just walks out of the room and he's like, "Come on, go back to the room. We need to talk about this." And he's like, "I'm making waffles, and then I'm going to eat this waffle." He's like, "We can't talk here." It's like, no, that's the point. I thought it was really enjoyable.
You went far too into that. The line on its own, "I'm making waffles," was all you needed.
I just like because I like that it keeps going, and then he's just like when they sit down and then she starts again, it's like, "No, I'm gonna go for coffee."
It's not because it's like a sequel to the I'm eating a sandwich from last episode. I'm making a waffle.
Also, on that topic, is just her initials.
It's just her name because I heard her full name in this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when Paris ring for her.
Because someone commented on the last review saying that it was just her initials and that's what the others were calling her, and that makes sense. But I didn't remember what her full name was.
Yeah, me either.
She said that again in this one, so I don't think I ever knew her full name, if I'm honest.
I don't recall it.
No, but yeah, so that happens, and obviously the other big thing that happens with hotels is that OA tells them, she sees that it's hurting them, that they don't know what happened, and she opens up, and we see her starting to tell the details. We cut away because we don't have to hear it all again. We know everything.
Yeah, we've got it already.
I don't know if she told them everything. Like, did she tell them about the motions, the near-death experiences, the experiments? I don't know, but
I think because we cut away, I assume we did, because otherwise we'd have seen certain things that she didn't tell them. Like she'd have done it briefer and they'd done a summary, but we'd have noticed what she didn't tell them.
But I think it depends on our opinions on something else, though, before you can even answer that. Because if something else, if she's lying to the others, then maybe she just tells them the parts that are true. And that would leave out a lot of the other stuff.
That's assuming she's lying, and it's.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It depends. It depends.
But not even like maybe she believes it still, but even based on that idea.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, but we don't see it though, so we don't know. We don't know exactly how much she tells her. We get the impression she tells them enough, but how much I don't know. But what I do actually really like about all the stuff on the other side of this, with the other kids, with Steve and Alfonso and everyone else, is them trying to like prove that everything happened. Them trying to find the evidence, and they're looking for a doctor that can fly. They're looking for this. They're searching for different things. He phones the ALS like helpline and it's like, oh, do you know of a woman? Try to figure out the location maybe of where the mine would be. If they can narrow it down to like a town or a city, and they find a YouTube video of her playing the violin in New York. So someone recorded it in like Chinese YouTube, or you know what I mean. There was a Chinese person that uploaded it because it was all in Chinese.
Yeah, all you could really tell was NYC.
Yeah. The rest of it was all
Yeah.
And they're looking for stuff, and Alfonso keeps digging, and he goes to her house at night, and this is when they're still in the hotel, so the house is empty, and he gets in the window, and he goes up to the bedroom. And honestly, at this point, I'm like, where's this going?
Yeah, me too.
What's he looking for, exactly? And regardless of what he's looking for, what is he going to find? What is this scene going to lead us to? Because it felt like it was going somewhere.
Yeah, well, it had to have a purpose, this, in the final episode.
Well, obviously, but I mean, it felt like a bigger deal than just something small. Like,
yeah.
It didn't just feel like it was going to be like a small plot point.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he finds this box under her bed with several books. One about Russian history, one about angels, one about near-death experiences, and one by an author named Homer. Clearly implying, that this is all being fake. That she's been reading about all this stuff, and it's not real, right? Let's see your opinion as to what it is on that.
I am.
Alright. A couple of other things I want to mention first. Alfonso, distressed about this discovery, goes to the bathroom to rinse his face off and clear his thoughts. He looks in the mirror, and he sees Homer staring back at him. Who he wouldn't even know what he looks like, might I add. Really?
Yep.
I think that's a worthwhile point. He goes downstairs, and he runs into Riz Ahmed's character, the counsellor, who questions Alfonso why he's there, and all I could think was, yeah, same.
Why are you here?
Yeah, same back at you, buddy. Why are you here?
Yeah.
And he talks about helping someone's grief by like sort of borrowing it from them, and that's what he's done. But let's talk about why he's there, and let's talk about these books and the possibility that this is fabricated.
I can think of a few reasons. They could still be her books, and it could be like a connection to things, just to, she gets the Iliad by Homer, a classic piece of literature, and she goes, well, it's something to connect her. Same with the Russian book, it connects her to her past. That's all they are, reminders.
Possibly. Here's a question for you. Can she read English?
I don't know. Because we know, obviously, she can read. at least some degree, because she was before she was blind, she could read Russian at least.
She could read Russian, and then she could read Braille. But
Yes.
can she read in English?
It depends if she was ever taught it as a child, or depends if they ever. I don't know.
Wait, how do you teach a blind person to read English?
No, I mean, if there was any point after she was not blind, if she learned to read, I don't know.
But the only time she's been not blind is in the cells in captivity.
Yeah, I know. I'm spitballing as I'm going. I'm thinking they're the only windows that it could have happened.
Yeah. Likelihood would be not. She does kind of try to spell something on the phone when she's trying to call the guys, but she can't remember Alfonso's last name. And
We know she can write English to a degree because we see her sign the letter.
well, it's only her own name.
Well, yeah, but they're English letters, and they wouldn't have been in Russian, you know.
Okay, true. But I mean, the rest of the letter though was typed, so it has just been her
The
Braille
rest
keyboard.
was, so yeah. But she signed it, which means she knows at least those letters, which is something.
True, but if you look at those letters, it's very clear that someone who struggles to write wrote them because it's all very blocky and very...
Yeah, because she can't see.
Well, exactly. But you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
though? Like, it's clear that it's maybe not something she can do. Plus, I mean, the books were all looking kind of new as well, I thought. They all look very pristine, as if... So, there's a popular theory, I think, that Riz Ahmed's character planted them there.
Well, yeah, but again, to go with the new idea, they're in an Amazon box, so they've been ordered relatively recently, perhaps, if they look new as well. I'm still not against the idea that she could have had these ordered since she got back as connections.
See, my only problem with that, though, is I think that is the most boring possible theory you could come up with as to why they're there.
Yeah, it's boring, but that
It
doesn't
is,
mean
though.
it's not the one.
It doesn't mean anything, though. It's just, oh, she got them afterwards. No. Either she's lying, and this is research material, or they were planted there to disprove her story, to discredit her. And to be fair, the counsellor is the only person not in the group that would know enough about what happened to plant the sufficient seeds. You know, this is where she got this and this from. And it does make you question, well, how much of her story can we prove as viewers? Because obviously we can't prove anything that's came from her.
Yeah.
But there's other stuff that we can kind of prove. We know she was playing the violin in New York. We see that in the YouTube video in this episode, as do, you know, the other characters. We know that she was adopted because the parents talk about it in this episode. They even mention that they wanted the boy.
Yeah,
and
we
took her
know she
instead.
was blind, and now she's not.
We know she was blind and now she's not. That's completely accurate.
That is fact, yeah.
I do believe there was a home video of her speaking Russian earlier in this, like in episode 1.
Yeah.
So she does appear to have also been Russian as well.
Yeah. And also, we know she did vanish for 7 years and then show up with a seemingly suicide attempt off a bridge.
Well, obviously she disappeared. for
Yeah,
7
I'm just
years.
saying, like, yeah, but where was she if not somewhere like this? Like, where could she have been? And why would she show up like that?
Well, yeah, I mean that would be the big question. Which is
Yeah.
why I lean towards. See, I do wonder if some of it is not what she's saying. Like, I still think there may be elements of it that are coping mechanisms, or
Yeah, I don't think she's ever actively lying, but maybe she's just wrong, misremembering. Because obviously, she could have changed her memories as like you say, as a coping mechanism. Things have altered, but that doesn't necessarily mean she's lying.
So yeah, we have this big, huge gaping hole, and obviously it affects everyone. Alfonso shows the rest of the team; they're all disheartened. But then the question is, if he did plant them, why? Why is he doing
Yeah.
it? Why does he want to discredit our story?
What does he gain out of this?
Is he a demon? If we have angels, I mean,
I mean, there's that. Is he just a colleague of Hap's?
oh, that's a weird thing I hadn't thought of. I don't know. It's an out
I
there
mean, Hap
guess,
seems
but-
he seems well connected because obviously he has a plane. He can just travel to Cuba multiple times whenever he wants. He has a relatively decent-sized house in the middle of nowhere, it seems, which you'd think maybe cost a bit. And I don't know, maybe because the counselor is part of the FBI, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem that out there that maybe he knows someone over there, and I don't know.
Maybe. I don't think it's super likely, but I mean, I wouldn't rule it out either.
Mm.
His motivations are weird. If he is, even if he's not planting the books, why is he at the house? Like, that's one thing. Like, even if, like, okay, maybe he's not guilty of that, but he's still randomly
At the
poking
house
about
in the middle
house.
of the night when he knows no one's there.
Yeah, and he's surprised that someone else is there, and he almost gets it out of it. Like, he gets a get out of jail free card with the characters almost because he is with the FBI. He can, I'm with the FBI. You know,
Well, yeah, and
don't you question me? But he has no reason to be there.
there's not. And even if you go, oh, I was going to visit her, and he didn't know that they'd gone to the hotel, then
Why is he inside?
why is he inside? Yeah.
Yeah, and what? And why is he going to visit the house when that's never happened before? They've always went to her, and it does make you sort of recollect your thoughts and go, he has been sort of portrayed so far as very stand up, very welcoming, wants nothing but to help her. Like he's almost too perfectly kind,
Yeah.
so far.
I mean, and it's to the point where you don't question it because that was his job.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's how a therapist that's trying to help you would kind of talk to you. But at the same time, it makes me more suspicious in retrospect because I'm like, oh, there's not even a flaw. There's not even a slight little.
Yeah, there is nothing. And then obviously you've got the bit of the mirror.
And you've got the bit in the mirror, and what the hell does that mean? Well, I mean, it at least shows that Alfonso is the one that correlates. If each five of them correlate to one of the five, that's the one he correlates to. It at least gives us that, I guess.
I also noticed the touch with the head wound. Because I feel like we saw Homer do it a while ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Alfonso has the cut on his head. So it just seems like there's these little details that you could go both ways with. Maybe it is that they are like this link and they're kind of becoming the same thing, or it's she is borrowing details from the people around her to inform the characters in her story.
Yeah. Or here's an out there one. She's already moved to another dimension. And this is like Homer in this new dimension or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or she came back from, like, when she went away for 7 years, she was actually in another dimension.
Yeah. Okay.
And now she's back, and I don't know. I'm trying to connect the dots. Like I feel like it can't just be as straight as she was just held captive for 7 years. Even though I believe the gist of a lot of the things we've kind of seen, I think they kind of represent something. It's kind of like I won't get into spoilers for another show, but it's kind of like how a certain Mr. Robot plot, it was like everything represented something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's what's going on in this story in the past.
So, like, instead of being trapped in a physical cage, she was just trapped in another dimension.
Possibly. On the flip side of that, they're all actually still in the cage, and it's the rest of them who are all hallucinating, and she's trying to bring them back. Like, this is actually Homer, who's thinking he's Alfonso, and like.
Yeah, and she's communicating like through like a dream state sort of thing almost.
Yeah, and again, that's also a really out there. But this is the thing. This show has built up all these ideas that it's open to all these really wacky, weird interpretations where all these things are possible, and there's so much left open for season 2. Because after those opening scenes at the start, we don't go back to Hap. We don't see any more of that story. And why would we? Because if it's Oya that's telling it, she's already left at that point.
She doesn't know anymore. Yeah.
We have no idea how that stuff ends. That's something that is completely left open for season 2.
I will say there was something there that did bother me. The whole time they've said these movements have to be done with feeling. They have to all be like in tune with each other. Mm-hmm. And Hap says kind of he'll do it with them almost. And it's and she never questions it. Like, how are you going to feel like they feel? Like, how can he get that to work?
She's too busy being scared with a knife up against her neck.
I mean, yeah, but
I don't know.
Like maybe from his perspective, does he not know about the feeling thing? Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe he doesn't know, or maybe he's just too arrogant to easily get
That's
past
possible,
that.
yeah.
You know, I feel like it's in his character to try and brush past that, like, and so there's that. And we haven't even got to the school.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So actually, so OA is they're back at the house, and she's got like one of those like house arrest monitors on her ankle, and which I don't know if it's actually the police that have given them that, or if it's something that they've like the parents have just like put her in to make everyone else in the neighborhood feel safe before they move house. Because we see there's a for sale sign on the outside of the house. But either way, she's wearing this bracelet on around her ankle, and she's in the bath. By the way, see when she like wakes up sharply in the bath, I actually jumped because it was such a. It was just, not that it wasn't scary, but it was just like such a sudden. The way she sort of jumped up, I almost felt the jolt myself, and it was just kind of. It was
That's
like,
effective then.
It was perfectly quiet, perfectly tranquil, just lying in the bath. She's basically asleep, and then cut to sudden movement.
I think it was interesting as well that obviously she was having her dream in water. I feel like it's a nice touch to back how the first dream was about water, and like again that thread.
I also think it's a nice touch that we don't see any of it. She wakes up and we see the nosebleed, and we know exactly what that means.
Yeah, we don't need to see any of it.
Yeah.
We already saw it, and we assume that she just saw the same thing again, but understood it.
Abel actually just like letting her go, like kind of being understanding and letting her go, maybe shows the effect of her telling them the truth or part of the truth or whatever.
Yeah, whatever that she's told him, he seems to believe it.
He seems to believe it, or he's at least willing to let it ride for her so that she can get it out of her system, or whatever. He's willing to let it play its course.
Yeah.
And she starts running towards the school, and we don't know at this point what's going on. And we go to the school, and we see all 5 of our characters. We Betty's leaving her job. They briefly mentioned there was a hearing, probably because of what's happened with OA and Steve, all that kind of stuff. It's probably infected her job in some way. We don't have to get the details.
It doesn't seem too damaging though, because she's still on good terms with the principal.
Yeah, the principal even says like, "I'm sorry how it went," but clearly it's affected her job. But we don't have the details, and I don't think it matters. Do we have the details?
No, I don't need them.
It's just kind of, you get why it kind of led to that probably, and that's fine. I think the show, for better or worse, has done quite a lot of that this season, where there'll be things where they don't spell it out and they let us fill in the gaps. And sometimes I think it works really well, and then there's been a couple of times where we feel like, oh, it's weird that this moment's missing.
I think for once it's like this, it's like, well, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter how it happened or why. It's just details. Whereas times like the name OA, that felt like that should have been a moment of like self-awareness, self-accomplishment, and it was just missing.
Yeah, it should have been a moment. It should have been something we remembered happening, and it was kind of, there was a moment kind of that was before it, and then we knew she was getting called it after it, but there was no.
Yeah, we felt like there was something missing. This time I don't feel there was something missing. It was just we never needed to know it. It doesn't matter.
But it's done that. I'd say it's done it successfully more than it's not.
Yeah, definitely.
Over the season, but there's been one or two where we're like, oh, that's kind of weird that they skipped that
and
detail.
They kind of stick out more, unfortunately.
Yeah, when you're remembering them, you kind of noticing them. There's probably tons of good examples of it, and we just you kind of brush past it. You just accept it. It's like good editing, for example. You notice when it's bad, but when it's good, you don't notice it. Yeah,
unless you're looking for it.
Yeah,
why would you notice it?
Yeah. And sometimes I am. If I'm rewatching something, I'll pay attention to the finer details of the filmmaking. But yeah, so we see them all in the cafeteria, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But of course, we even mentioned the parts of the dream that we recognised last week. It was lots of glass. We mentioned cutlery dropping, which would sync up with cafeteria, and gunshots. And I'm like, oh, is there going to be gunshots?
Yeah.
And I can't remember how long that was before it actually started happening. It was kind of, it was all sort of intercutting and things were. But one observation I did have before everything went down is that all 5 of our characters, well, 4 in the cafeteria, because Betty's still in the hall at this point, is they're all sitting in their own different groups. It's like they've all split up again.
They've kind of regressed.
Yeah, they're all in their own groups, and it really made me think of the cells, in the way that they were split down the middle like that.
Yeah, I get that.
And the way they were around the cafeteria, it really reminded me of that placement. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I noticed it a lot, especially when they stood up.
Yeah.
And you can really see it in the room because you have the big wide shots of all of them, and you can see how separate they are in that shape.
And the tables are all sort of the lines in between them, kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, a random shooter comes towards the school, fires a gun, and this is all done very well. Very tense, very realistic. It felt like everyone's panicking, trying to get under the tables. It's very terrifying. I think because it is so random is why it's so terrifying. And unfortunately, we live in a world where this just feels realistic. You know, it doesn't feel like, oh, this comes out of nowhere. Well, that's kind of...
Yeah, unfortunately, this exact event has happened
multiple
far
times.
too many times
Yeah.
in the last 5 years or whatever.
And schools and colleges especially seem to be a frequent target for this
Yes,
kind of thing.
yeah.
So you don't even question it. At first I thought they were going to reveal who the shooter was as if it was someone we were going to know.
Yeah, it was the way they were always cutting below the face, like just up to the chest.
But I don't think that's why they did it. I don't think that's why they were avoiding the face. I actually think this was a very specific and a very good technique they've used here. I think it... First of all, it doesn't matter who it is. He's
Yep.
supposed to be random. This enforces the fact that he's random. It's kind of like who shot Batman. It doesn't matter. He's just some random guy named Joe. It's, you know,
Yeah.
the fact that it's random is the important part.
Yeah.
And the second thing is by not seeing his face, it lets us focus on our other characters and what they're doing more. You know, it's... You know, he's not... The shooter's not a character. He is the event. He is the obstacle.
I also think it kind of demonizes him. It makes him scarier because it seems like he's almost not even a person.
He's not
he
human,
is just
yeah.
this thing.
He's the Terminator, essentially.
Essentially, yeah. Because you only have, I mean, even when you see his head, it's just from the back, and you kind of just see like blonde hair, and that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, they're all panicking. Betty even like decides to run into the cafeteria. She's because they hear what's happening. Everyone's like evacuating if they're not in the cafeteria. Everyone's like down on the ground. All our main characters are spread out in their sort of formation. And as the shooters come into the cafeteria, they all like look at each other. They all like have this moment of inspiration. Like maybe we can do like despite all the doubt, the books, the reasons why maybe this is bollocks.
Yeah.
They get a moment of inspiration and they all stand up at the same time and start doing the formation. And the violin theme that we've had, the main sort of theme, plays.
And you've got to imagine all these kids on the floor have got to be going, what the hell are they doing?
Well, this is the beauty of this scene, right? First of all, I think it's really well shot. I think it actually, despite how ridiculous the movement thing is, them all doing it to the theme that we've been hearing whenever, you know, basically always theme.
Yeah.
Felt very, grand. It felt like a big culmination of the season. It felt like they're ready to believe and they're doing something with it. Maybe they can stop what this is. They can stop this.
Yeah.
And, I think it's one of the workers from the kitchen comes out and tackles the shooter from behind after, some time. And there's a wonderful, so on the one hand, did their movements stop this shooting? Well, okay, actually, let me rephrase that. Obviously they did, but did they stop the shooting because it actually has some sort of power? Or did it stop the shooting because it's the end of Guardians of the Galaxy and they're just distracting the shooter because he's going, what the bloody hell are these five idiots doing?
Yeah, there's also the idea that maybe he is as entranced and mesmerized as we are. Because it is, like I said, we've mentioned it a few times with the NDE gifts. It's very hypnotic. And you just stare and lose yourself.
Which is kind of the debate. Is it the hypnotic thing because there is power behind it? Or is it just, this is ridiculous? Like, I almost wonder if this is the best way to deal with no one should be in this situation, but if you are, I don't know if it's the best thing to try, but I almost wonder if the best thing to do is do something really weird to really throw them off.
Yeah, because it's got to be, you'd never expect it, so you have to process it and you have to think about what's happening rather than just follow your... Because you've got to imagine, these shooters, they have some sort of idea in their head of what's going to happen, and they have an idea of how people are going to react. They're going to run. They're going to be scared.
Yeah,
down on the ground.
They've probably been fantasizing about it for a long time, months, weeks, years even.
So you got to imagine someone breaking that idea has got to be weird for them.
Whip it out and start having a wank and just watch the confusion in his face. It'll give someone else enough time to tackle him.
Exactly.
Are you good? No one do that.
Oh, no, please don't.
Maybe try it.
We do not endorse ever trying this if you're in this situation.
No. But part of me does kind of think, would it work?
I'm kind of with you, though.
Like, would you confuse them enough that they would be like, huh? Just long enough for someone to, tackle them.
Yeah.
I don't know. wanking or otherwise. Pick your distraction. That was just the most ridiculous thing I could think of that would definitely get their
Pretty
attention.
ridiculous, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so they all do this, and we see that OA has got there. She's outside the window, and she's seen them do it, and she says, "You guys did it," or she says that later in the ambulance. I can't remember exactly. I think she says something at the window as well. She definitely says something there. But we see the crack in the window, sort of going up. So you get an idea of what's happened before we see it, and the camera pulls back, and the bullet, because when the gunman gets tackled, he does fire off a couple of shots, so
Yeah.
and we see that there's a bullet went right in the middle of her chest. And we cut to her getting into an ambulance. She's bleeding, and the five of them all feel like they all feel moved. You can tell they're all like in this now, like they're not doubting anymore. And they're let her into the ambulance, and then they feel this swift breeze. And as Steve runs after the ambulance saying, "It's happening, it's happening. Take me with you, take me with you." And we hear OA narrate once again, describing what it would be like. It's invisible, you won't see it. It'll be like getting washed up in a current. In this sense, the thing he's noticing is the wind. The wind is the current.
I'm still convinced I was right the whole time. It's just death. And the others are all dead, and that's where she's going to visit them. And the idea is that even though it's if you want to go into the mystical, they're doing that is what caused the bullet. Them doing the movements is what caused the guy to tackle him, to cause him to shoot the bullets, which caused him to hit her, right? Mm-hmm. So in that sense, if that is what caused her to die and go over to this other dimension, that did open the tunnel, essentially.
Yeah, but why do the dance? Just shoot yourself in the head.
I know, but it's one of those fate things, isn't it? Like, the whole thing has been about fate, like the woman with ALS going, like, it's all her whole life she's been waiting for this. It's the same way. It's got to happen at the right time.
I think the way you're saying it's too simplifying it. Like that's just dying. Like I think there's more to. I feel like if it's just dying, then what's season 2? Like she has to come back, or there has to be more to it than that. It feels too simple.
I don't know.
But anyway, you jumped in there. There was like 10 seconds left of the show. Let me say what happens in it. So yeah, he runs after. We hear this narration and it fades to black, and I'm like, is this over? Is this over? Oh no, she's there. Always there. We're in a white room. Almost looks like a padded cell, might I add.
Mm.
And she says, Homer? Waits for a response. Cut to symbol, credits. So, I thought it was ending, then it didn't. I was excited it didn't end. We got one line, and then it ended anyway.
Yeah.
So, yes. They left a lot more for season 2 than I thought they were going to. I honestly went into this thinking there'd be not answers. I didn't think we'd get concrete answers yet. I think it would still be ambiguous, but I didn't think it would be this much. But at the same time, I also didn't expect to see such a great, riveting, tense scene of like a gunman in a school with them kind of saving the day using what they'd known and feeling the sort of the rush of emotion that came with that. Like I wasn't expecting anything like that, and that was fantastic. That whole scene was great.
Yeah, it is.
It's just, where does this leave us?
It's just left so many questions. And this is a show that's had a lot of questions, but I have the most after this episode than any other.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't actually answer anything. It added a lot more questions onto the table, which I don't necessarily mind. That said, if they don't renew this for season 2, I am going to be very upset. There will be swearing on Twitter, I promise you that.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it was a good episode. Like I liked most of it, and like I say,
interestingly, I'd heard some people say they really didn't like this episode. They thought it was a massive disappointment, and I guess that's just because they didn't get any answers.
Well, I think it's a lack of answers, and it's probably just a disappointment of how they handled the ambiguity at the end. I'm not disappointed per se. I'm just kind of surprised.
Yeah, it was shocking in the way that they handled it, because it was just not what you expected at all.
Like, I really expected there to be more of a hook for, like, come back next season and see where and obviously there is, like, she's went somewhere. Like, Steve thinks she's going just now in the ambulance, and that does link up with the idea that you think it's kind of a dying thing. But
I mean, I can also say, what if she hasn't gone somewhere? What if she's she was in the ambulance, they saved her, and she was in and to keep her safe after she kind of recovered, they put her in a padded cell, like you suggested. And what if it's when she says Homer, what if it's actually Alfonso visiting her? And she's getting confused. I don't know.
If there's even anyone there, like she could just be.
Well, yeah, that's assuming there's anyone there.
Because I took it as she thinks she's went into the other dimension and she's saying, Homer, are you there? Like, are you there?
Okay, to me it looked like she'd seen someone and she was reacting.
Oh, I didn't get that. No, I thought she
Okay.
just kind of woke up in this thinking she was in a new dimension. If she is or isn't is another question, but she thinks she is, and she's
okay.
like, Homer, are you there? Kind of thing, without saying the last part.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay.
that's the way I took. That's the way I read that line delivery. But
I can see it both ways, to be honest.
season 2,
I mean, it's
season
the only
2.
place we're going to get answers unless they want to just tell us all about it on Twitter. That'd be nice.
I think I'm deeply intrigued. Like I think that what the show's done all season is left me intrigued. I've enjoyed the dreamlike tone of the whole season, and even though I am someone who's not religious, I'm definitely not a believer. It doesn't actually matter in the show. Like it's captivating, it's interesting, it's fantastical. You like almost from a science fiction perspective. I enjoy this as if it is like trying to break through into something kind of thing. Like
Yeah, and you kind of get caught up in the story the same way the characters do.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like you just kind of
It's a
get
really good-
lost in it. And every time they cut back to the present, it's like, oh yeah, this is a story. You're just so lost in it.
yeah, it's a really good storytelling device to put us in the same place as the characters, and I think it. I think for some people the ambiguity and the constant questions without the answers, and this is compare it to Westworld, which ended this first season just a few weeks ago. That was a lot more. Yeah, there was a lot of questions all season, but you kind of felt in the finale in season 1. All right, everything that was questioned this season has been answered. Season 2 will have new things that we can question, and
Yeah.
we'll get new answers. Whereas this, no. There's some big questions for the show that we don't have anything on yet. What happened to the others? Happened the captives? What happened after OA left? Did they go somewhere? Are they just still there? And if her story wasn't accurate, like if she's changing details, if she's remembering things differently, if there is like dimensional timey-wimey stuff going on, or just dimensional wimey stuff going on, like what does that mean? And a lot. There's a lot.
Like you
guys.
say, there's all these questions that have been going for the entire season that it doesn't answer. But then it gives you a whole bunch of new questions to ask as well, like, why is Riz Ahmed just there? What's he doing? What are these books? It gives you a lot more questions than just what you had, which is maybe off-putting.
Yeah, I think to some people that is off-putting. For me, I think it's leaving us with more to like theorize and like speculate over the next year or however long it's going to be till a possible season 2.
I think I'm okay with it, but if at the end of season 2 I still had no answers at all, that's when I'd start to feel a little bit disappointed, perhaps. I don't need all the answers. I don't need firm, concrete things on everything, but just answers on some things have to be done.
Yeah, I don't need answers. I need some puzzle pieces that I can fill in enough myself.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Whereas just now I feel like they've just taken away more pieces.
it feels like we started with maybe just the edges of a jigsaw puzzle, and then they've kind of taken away like the corners, so we don't know how far it's still going to go out.
Yeah, it feels like it's it was a 500-piece puzzle, but now it seems like it may be a 1,000-piece puzzle.
Yeah, but it does feel like we had some idea. We had a contained space of, okay, this is what this show is. The questions should lie within this box. And then in this, they kind of went, no, no, could be any of them.
I tell you what, though, that I think was really successful in this show. I really like most of the characters now. I care about them.
Yeah, I think that last scene in the school really helped. Like even like for people like we talk about how Jesse had not really had a lot, whereas like once he got up with all alone, like the part of the group, you kind of care about almost through proxy of everyone else.
Yeah, I care about the group. I care about obviously someone else. I think Steve is a really interesting character because he's a dickhead, but he's trying not to be a dickhead, and you want him not to be a dickhead. You're rooting for him to be better. And
Yeah, you have a lot of like him at the end as well. Like as Betty's packing up her desk, she kind of looks over, and you can see all the field before he comes into the cafeteria, I assume.
Yeah, yeah. But not even just that. Like you see him with Alfonso earlier on when they're researching, and Alfonso looks stressed. He's like, "No, we'll get this, man." Like he's reassuring him. Like,
Yeah.
And it was only like 3 episodes ago they were at each other's throats because Steve had a temper. Like.
Yeah.
But I think that not only is he getting better, it's the fact that I think you actively hope that he gets better. You're wanting him to get better. You care about him. It's almost that rehabilitation thing. You don't just want him to get rid of him because he's a dickhead. You want him to become better than that and not be a dickhead. And I think that's actually a very impressive feat for a story, for a TV show or whatever. Like, I think it's a very complex desire for a character. Typically you like a character, you don't like a character. You want them to be around, you don't want them to be around. Kind of thing. You want two characters to get together, maybe. Like there's basic hopes and needs, or the opposite that you want for characters and stories usually. But wanting them to be around but change who they are because it makes them a better person is kind of a more complex thing that I feel like you don't see as much, or at least I don't think I feel as much.
And no, and if you do, it never often feels unfulfilling. Like it doesn't. They don't pull it off that well. Whereas this really, he did grow, and like we spoke a lot last time, how he matured with his response at the end, and he has grown a lot, and it feels realistic.
But it feels realistic because it's not just perfectly like done either. And when I say perfectly done, I don't mean the show. I mean it's not just like a perfect like change, because when the guys come for him, he starts acting out again. Like it's almost there's almost a message to read in there that if you try and force someone into like a prison-like situation when they're already trying to rehabilitate, you could actually harm it. You could make it worse. You're almost making them go on the defensive and become the person again. When we could see that he was trying to be more mature and try to,
I think in just on that theme there, it's almost interesting. Riz Ahmed is in this after the themes played in the night of earlier this year.
Yeah, except in this he's like the shady one who might be against everyone, which is a nice flip of things.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But what are his motivations?
I have no idea,
I
want to know. I feel like he's almost the most intriguing part for me, because all the mystical stuff I can kind of take or leave, even if they never give me firm answers, like one way or the other, I can kind of leave that. But things like him, what is he doing? Who is he? Why? That I need to know.
He's a demon. Maybe. I'm liking this theory. Assuming everything's true and there is actually angels happening here. I feel like some there's like theologists and stuff or whatever that could write like a thesis on this show and like dissect all the symbolism.
I still don't understand why she is the original angel, because the old woman, the sheriff's wife, she had this experience. She had the bird. She had the movement so many years ago. What was special about her that made her the original?
If the angel inside them though transfers from people to people, because I suggested that way back in like episode 1 or 2, then that would mean that the angel part of her is actually something that's been passed down to her.
Okay, and that's why maybe the angel part inside Homer is now in Alfonso.
Yeah. If that's what's happening, maybe it's because Homer's body died and he's gone.
Yeah, and maybe they have to readjust, and that's why they don't just remember everything straight away, because it would be too jarring, perhaps.
Yeah. I will say this though, I have no idea what season 2 is going to be in terms of structure, because this was very much some present day stuff, but she's telling the story of the captivity, and it almost makes me wonder, will there be a time jump and we'll get like a sort of story in the past again kind of thing of what happened between seasons?
You could do that. I feel like maybe they'll play it as still, because this was kind of a story in 2 parts, right? The past and the present. I feel like in this case we'll show it as the group versus her, and maybe their struggles to do they try and get back to each other. Like obviously the group's going to try and find her, but is she going to try and find the group, or is she going to just try and find Homer and that group? Or what's going to go on there. Maybe it's the two parallel journeys.
Yeah, possibly. But there you go. I have not. I am. I'm speechless almost.
I will say, you know how you mentioned earlier how you never really notice good editing?
Yeah, yeah.
There was a moment I did notice. I thought it was really well edited. It was when they were doing the movements at the gunman, and it was all just, it flowed together so well, and the way it cut between them, continuing the movement.
Oh yeah, that's. Do you know what's funny about that is basic editing 101, right? Is when you're editing someone moving on camera. It's actually a lot more difficult than you think it is to cut between shots of someone moving, because if you're like a frame out either way of the cut, it looks stupid. It looks like someone repeats a part of the motion, to make it actually look fluid. So someone stands up into another shot, like to make that actually look like it's flowing at the right speed and to make it feel like it's actually running in time, actually takes talent. So to me, that's funny that that's a thing here, because essentially all this is doing that, but switching between people.
Yeah, but it's so perfectly done,
Yeah.
and I think like you said, it's hard at the best of times. It's not an easy thing, but when it's moving that fast and it's got to be on these hit points with the music so accurately.
Well, that's kind of think why I think it does work so well, is because the editor is used to doing that normally. That all he's doing here is switching between people. It's a skill that that he or she's already, been homing for years. Like, so it actually works really well. But it's the same thing. It's making it fluid between each person. One person starts with their hands here, the other moves out and cuts to the other person.
You go into the next one. Yeah. But it just looks so great, and I noticed it was like, oh, that is done just perfectly.
Because it got faster as it went as well.
Yeah.
The further it went along, which made it feel like it was culminating to a, building like other way, orgasm, is kind of thing, where it's building and building, and you have the moment of release. In this case, is being tackled by a school worker.
Yeah.
Anything else that you would like to cover, address, thoughts on the season as a whole that we've not mentioned? Are you satisfied? No. Are you happy you watched this? Or are you looking forward to season 2?
Definitely. I mean, this was such a, again, we have so many of these lately that kind of come out of nowhere. We're like, guess we'll check this out.
To be fair though, this one in particular, Netflix only announced it was going up about 5 days.
And they literally saved us, because we were going to watch Man in the High Castle. Man, this weekend could have been so different.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that we already did our best new shows of the year. This probably would have snuck on that top 10 had it not launched at a stupidly late time.
Yeah, because we thought, oh, that's it. There's nothing else still to come.
Yeah, we thought, there's nothing else starting now till the end of the year. Only a few weeks left. But Netflix had to come in and sneak something in.
I think they announced it like 3 days after we did it as well.
I know, really stupid.
It was like it's right after. It was like, ugh.
So I don't know where it would have placed, but it would have definitely got on there somewhere.
Definitely.
Probably not high up. It's it's not beating Stranger Things or Westworld or or maybe even Quarry, but
I feel like the 5 to 7 sort of range maybe.
Yeah. Timeless, unfortunately, which was number 10, would have been knocked off. But
yeah,
I think this is something that's definitely not for everyone. I said this in the first episode review, and I definitely feel that way. If anything, I feel that's more like it's justified in my statement, where I think, no, some people are going to hate this, and even if they're in it for a while, they're going to hate that it doesn't answer anything, and it's this ambiguous, and it's this kind of spiritual, but maybe not spiritual, But for me, the filmmaking's great, the atmosphere is great. I do love a story of like inspiration and faith, which again, I'm not someone who is religious, but the story of faith in a story, I enjoy a lot, actually.
Yeah.
The idea of someone taking a leap of faith, there's a reason why John Locke was one of the best characters on Lost, because he was the one who had faith before everyone else did, and that made him fascinating to watch for obvious reasons, if you've seen the show.
I mean, while you mentioned Lost, I feel like this is going to get similar complaints, because obviously I didn't watch Lost, but there was a massive sect of people who thought they liked it, but then never got answers for so long that kind of began to hate it for that.
The funny thing is, though, is I feel like Lost did a better job of making their season finales, though, feeling like finales.
Yeah.
They did big things where you'd get something new, and maybe it would open more questions, but it would answer something, or it would answer an element. I whereas this, I feel like even more so. Like, I think the people who are annoyed at Lost would be even more annoyed at this.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's
Yeah,
those sort of people where. So if you watch Lost and you started to not like it for those reasons, why are you still with us?
pretty much.
I mean, you're probably not still watching this because you probably hated it and gave up.
Uh,
But
yeah, I think in the end, though, I like all the other stuff that like I say, the filmmaking, the music, the mysteries, all that stuff.
yeah,
And and also I love science fiction. So the idea of like someone doing experiments on people underground to try and unlock the secrets of the afterlife, I'm into that
yeah,
kind of
and the
idea.
idea that maybe the afterlife is different dimensions. We got some
Yeah.
time stuff going on, and oh yeah,
Well, wait, time stuff's not confirmed yet. That's
oh
just
yeah, no, but no, but maybe time
maybe
stuff.
times. You've been championing it all season, and I'm not disputing you. I'm just saying it's not actually been brought up in the show yet.
Okay, but I still think it might be. Because it still feels like when she's in the other dimension, especially in the planetscape part,
The space cubes.
yeah, that feels like outside of time. It feels completely removed. So, yeah.
What I was going to say though is I think the main reason why I like the show though is the characters and the character work, and the character drama feels 99% of the time very genuine, and the way they react off of each other works for me. It's definitely a little bit heightened. Like there's definitely moments where yeah they do the sort of things that characters in indie movies would do rather than what people in real life would do, because ultimately people in real life would never go along with this five movement thing.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
there's a few times where I feel maybe things weren't entirely earned. You know, where she says she loved Homer.
Yeah. No,
It's like it's like okay, I get that you have to say that because that was the point we started at, but I never really fully saw that.
Yeah, although that said, though, I did really like when they did touch just before Hap got jealous. I did kind of feel like, oh, they're
Well,
having like
that's the thing. I always felt like they were getting there and they were having moments and growing, but I never felt like they quite got to this point.
I don't know. I might defend that a little bit. I know I've complained about some of the elements of that, but I think how unrequited it is because they could never even touch because they were always in
Mm,
like cells. You know,
yeah.
I think that does maybe aid to this. Like maybe she didn't even realize that that's what it was until after she left. Like it's only
Mhm.
now that she can think about it. She go, I was in love with him. Like all I can think about is getting back to him. Like
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll allow that.
yeah. I'm piecing it together.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I care about the characters and I care about what they're going through and I care about them having revelations and I care about them not only becoming better people but I care about them believing in what they're doing.
Yeah, you care about them coming together as a group.
Yeah, and as a team and achieving something, whatever that may be, whether it's because this is real and they're going to actually open space portals to death lands and dimensions and whatnot, or if it's no, they will achieve things because they're a team that they can rely on each other and they can essentially be a support group for one another. And
Well, yeah, because that's the thing. In the end, with the gunman, regardless of whether or not it was mystical or just a fluky distraction, it happened because they were a team and they did something together. So it did get results in the end, one way or the other.
so that's the season finale. Let us know what you thought of this episode, of course, and the season as a whole in the comments below. Did you like it? Are you frustrated? Because I expect a lot of people will be frustrated. Maybe if you weren't before, you are by the finale because you thought there'd be more of a conclusion. Like, because I certainly feel like when we finished 3%, we said, okay, yeah, there's definitely stuff that is open for season 2 and we want a season 2. But if there isn't one, like, it did feel like it kind of closed off that part of the story. Whereas here, I
Whereas
feel
this,
like it
we
feels
need a season 2.
it feels like part one. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like we've concluded anything, which is not a bad thing necessarily. As long as we get season 2, that's okay.
No, it's maybe a show of confidence in their work that they are willing to bet that they'll get a season 2.
I'm hopeful. I feel like Netflix, even if you don't do that well, they at least give you a second season to see if because they can promote it all again when season 2 is coming out.
Yeah, and I feel like there is, for as many people as this won't appeal to, I feel like there is a certain core audience that this might appeal to a lot and kind of get a rabid fan base, which may help Netflix.
Yeah. Plus, it doesn't seem as if it's as expensive as a lot of their other shows. It feels like it's more of a niche production.
Well, yeah, I mean, even in terms of sets, how much of the time in the entire show did we just spend in one room in a basement?
Yeah, or in the attic or whatever of the house.
Yeah. There's probably like 5 or 6 main sets, and then a few other bits.
Yeah. I don't know how much Jason Isaac costs, but he's probably not compared to
No,
like
but he was worth it because I
yeah,
thought he was phenomenal.
yeah, but compared to like Kevin Spacey or whoever else is in all the Netflix shows, he's probably the
Probably not
biggest
as
star.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably the biggest star they've got in this one. Or Phyllis from The Office, I guess, is number two.
Riz Ahmed's getting up there.
Yeah, Riz Ahmed. Yeah, that's your star power. Riz Ahmed, Phyllis from The Office, and Jason Isaacs. The prick from The Patriot, if you've seen that. But no, let us know what you thought of the season. Deeply curious. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. It helps us out a lot. I can't speak.
We've gone on too long on this last one that now we're
We
just
have.
like, okay, we're done.
Yeah, this has been an hour. This video. Jesus Christ. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. Yeah, nailed it. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz. We'll see you in another dimension, hopefully for season 2. I'm eating a sandwich.